Hey teachers, Lindsay Bowden here, and in this video I want to talk about stations. Stations are a great asset to your classroom. They can help make a boring worksheet turn into something really collaborative and fun. But a lot of teachers avoid stations because of those classroom management issues. So in this video, I'm going to tell you how I set up stations in my classroom and how I deal with those classroom management issues so they're not an issue anymore. So let's get started. All right, let's talk about how to set up stations. I use stations in my classroom right before a unit test. Now, you can use them anytime throughout the unit, but this just worked the best for me. So let's say tomorrow is a test over right triangle trigonometry. Today I'm going to do stations, and I want each station to be about a different topic from the unit. So for example, station 1 would be finding a side. Station 2 would be finding an angle. Station 3 would be word problems. Station 4 could be solving right triangles, so forth and so on. So for each station, I would create a worksheet, and I make my own resources, but you can find them online. Just find a worksheet on solving right triangles or a worksheet on word problems. And I would make sure that the worksheet had about 10 to 12 problems. And I would write at the top, station 1, station 2, station 3, station 4. I would print them out, and then I would work out the first problem from each station, showing all the steps, writing out little notes for the students to help them remember what we did in class, and then make sure you put the answer. That way, they already have one problem worked out. That will save you the 1 billion questions you're going to get during stations. Stations can be a really chaotic activity, and you want to eliminate as much of that chaos as you can before the class period even starts. So work out one problem. That will help students look at the problem and not have to ask you immediately, oh, I don't know how to do this. It helps a lot, I promise. Okay, so once I have my stations ready to go, then I laminate them. If you don't use a laminator, you can use the plastic sleeves. I promise you, you want to laminate them, because if not, even if you tell the students a million times, don't write on my station, they're going to write on your station. So you want to laminate them so they can't write on them and you can use them in the next class period. All right, finally, what I would do is I would choose my groups. So usually stations are a group activity. Now, you can do individual stations if you would like, but I like to use collaborative learning and let students work in groups, but I always chose the groups because 2 reasons. One, if you let students choose their groups, they're going to get with their friends, and it's probably going to be a lot of talking and a little learning. And I want a lot of learning and maybe just a little bit of talking. So I choose my groups that way. And then also I choose the groups based on skill sets. So for example, if I have a student that's really struggling, I want to pair them with a student that has the skill mastered. That way that they can collaborate together. And hopefully that student that has it mastered can really help out that student that's struggling. All right, so once I have my groups, then I set up my classroom and then I'm ready to go. Now let's talk about the classroom management issues you may come across when using stations and how to deal with those. So first of all, you can set up stations a lot of different ways in your classroom. I would like to cluster my desks into groups of usually 3 to 4, depending on my class size, and each cluster of desks was a station. So students would rotate around the groups of desks. The station stayed at the same set of desks the whole time. Another thing I would like to do is, if your students are going to just not write clearly on their notebook paper when they're answering the stations, print out a sheet for them and label it, all right, station 1, your answers go here. Station 2, your answers go here. That's going to help with grading a ton. The next thing that I do is set a timer on the board for each station. So it depends on the class size and the class period, but I had block schedule, so 90 minutes. So I would break up usually about 10 to 15 minutes per station, and I would have a timer on the board, and when it went off, they would move stations. And that saved me a lot of watching the clock and making sure that they rotate at the right amount of time. The next thing that I would suggest is make sure you have multiple copies of stations, because especially if you have different class periods, someone is going to walk away with that station probably on accident, but then you're going to get to your next class and you're going to be missing a station. So always have multiple copies ready to go. And then the last thing that I always like to do, and this, it depends on the class and how they are with checking their own work, but I would like to have the answer key for the stations at the front by my desk. And as students finish a station, especially if they're waiting to go to the next station, have one person from the group come up and check the answers and then go back and see what they got wrong and see if they can correct it. Now, if your students are not very trustworthy or you think they're going to copy, then leave a few minutes at the end of class and go over the answers with them as a class. And then what they can do is circle the ones they got wrong, and then the next day in class, like maybe you're doing a study guide for the test that day, you can go back over those with them and make sure they have them mastered before the test. Alright, so I hope this video on stations was helpful for you. If you have other methods for stations, please leave me a comment below. I love seeing all kinds of teachers' methods for stations, and I hope you have a great day.